Is there a dream that you have been harboring, but you are holding back because you're afraid of stepping outside your comfort zone? Or maybe you feel like you should be leaving a relationship, but you haven't. Or there's a job that you want to go for, but you haven't gone for it because it's easier to just play it safe. So you play small. But at the same time, you feel like you have this aching void inside of you because you're not doing what your heart longs for. If any of this resonates with you, I invite you to listen to this week's episode with my guest, Carolini. And I am telling you, we lasered the crap out of this interview. We went straight to the core of why people don't step outside their comfort zone, of why you play small, and then what you can do right away, what you can do to alchemize the fear that keeps you from stepping into your greatness. So tune into this week's episode. So, Carolini, welcome. As a spiritual mentor, a Reiki master, or facilitator, and life coach, what does it mean when you shared with me that you can handle disappointing others, but you can't handle betraying yourself? What does that mean to you?
Thank you so much for having me, Kin. I'm so excited to be here. And I love that we're opening with this question. I think that was for me a big realization that I had when I was at a point in life where people were choosing which careers to pursue from college. And everybody seemed like they knew exactly what they wanted to do, and I didn't, right? Like I was very much in a lost space. And to me, what that sentence means, I can handle disappointing others, but I can't handle betraying myself, is a true commitment to knowing that I am the most valuable force in my life. And that once all of this is done, there's nobody to respond to. I'm not going to be responding to my mom or to my parents or to my teachers. There's the only person that I will have to make peace with, it will be myself. And I think once I understood that and I used that to guide what kind of choices I would be making in life, my life became a lot richer for me.
Was that always the story for you? Was that always the case? Or was there a time in your life when you were living according to the expectations of your parents, your teachers, and other people?
I definitely think that when I was a teenager, I was very much living according to the expectations of others and very much trying to fit into a box. And especially in my family relationships, I definitely had that people pleasing role within my family system. And I was quite good at it, right? Like you become quite good at knowing what people around you need and how to do that for them so that you please them. And what I figured it out is that it got to a state where I realized that it doesn't matter how much I tried, I would always disappoint others. So I could try my best. I could please and please, but it would just never be enough. It would never be enough for others. And in the end of the day, it would never be enough for myself. So once I could recognize that disappointment wasn't something to fear from others, because I had no control over it. So how could I fear something that I can't control? That's when I found that liberation. And when I was like, well, you know what, then I'm going to live my life in my own terms. I'm going to do the things that I want to do. But it was something that I received quite early in life.
Was there a defining moment for you when you all of a sudden had this epiphany and realized? Was there a particular person that came into your life and they guided you? They shed light on this? Because, like, how did you know to pivot away from people pleasing?
The catalyst was really my mother.
Mm.
She was the catalyst of making me realize that I was in that people pleasing mentality and that I would never really please her in the end of the day. And that was like, as I told you, very much at the point between going to college and having to decide what to do with my career. So the real story is that I grew up in the south of Brazil. I used to go to a private school, like high middle class, very comfortable life. And I was never good at school. I never fit into the school models. And one of the teachers noticed that. And so she invited me to do a volunteer program where I had to teach children in the slums of Brazil. So very poor kids, like with very different life stories. And I went there to teach them theater classes for around a year. And I saw in front of my eyes how much theater changed the life of those kids. Like, it was a very transformative experience. I was 15 years old at the time. And it was one of those things that's like, oh my gosh, I love doing this so much. I love providing this transformation so much for these kids. And I was very torn because a part of me was saying, then I need to go into arts because I need to transform people's lives through art. That's how I know that transformation can happen. But then there was also my family system being like, you cannot make money from art. This is not a viable career option. And it was like at that crossroads where I had to make a decision of, I'm going to go for what's safe. I'm going to go for what my family wants of me. I'm going to please, or I'm going to take the path that I really want to do. And that was like the defining moment. It was like really seeing the change on those children and being like, I didn't even try. I didn't try to please them. Like, I just showed up, we explored art together, and transformation happened. And so why would I try to be not disappointing somebody that I will never be able to please, because they will always be disappointed, rather than choosing my own life path? And I've made that choice and I never looked back. But of course, there's other areas in my life where I can see people pleasing still sneaking in, especially on the online world, where I don't say exactly what I want to say at times. But in those times, I really make sure to notice it. And I really catch the pattern. I'm like, oh, okay, there's a fear here. There's a fear of people will not like me. People will think something different of me. So what do I want to do with this fear? What is really underneath this fear? Do I want to follow it, or do I want to challenge it a little bit?
Yeah, so let's talk about fear, because I feel like fear is what holds so many people back, especially people pleasers and perfectionists, from stepping outside of their comfort zone, from being their true authentic self. Just like you said, sometimes you censor what you want to say online because there's a fear of being your full, true, authentic self. So you censor, and that fear holds us back. It keeps us small, it keeps us in a box, and from being our greatest, truest selves. So, let's talk about why fear has such a negative, bad rap. Like, why is fear such a problem for some? That's part one. And then part two, how can people develop a different relationship with fear? Because you have a really different perspective on how to use fear as a catalyst. So we'll start with why fear is a problem for so many, so the listener can really identify, really hone in and understand how the fear is holding them back. And then part two will be, how can they use fear?
Yeah. Oh, such good questions. So I would say that why fear is such a problem for so many people is because we have lived in a society that hasn't really taught us how to self source
Mm.
our own sense of power. So the paradigm that we have been taught is a paradigm of codependency, where I need to depend on the system or I need to depend on the tribe in order for me to thrive. We haven't really understood the concept of interdependency, right? Where it's like we interact with each other in a harmonious way. And so when we are not really self-sourcing ourselves, it makes sense that we're going to have to live in fear
Mm.
because our reality is about survival. And in survival, there's no thriving. We can't think about conquering our dreams and fulfilling our life purpose and this big context for life if we're stuck in survival. Survival is I just need to eat and just need to have a home and I need to stay very safe. So I think that the antidote here is really learning how to self-sourcing our abilities and our resources for ourselves. And in fact, fear is one of those resources that if we don't look at it as an enemy, but we get it as an ally, it can really teach us to become stronger in our sense of self. Because for most people is we see something that we are afraid. And the first instinct that we have is, I don't want that, I resist it. We don't even explore, why am I really afraid? What is the real fear here? We just, oh, no, this is wrong, this is bad. shut down for me to let me go the other way. When in reality, if we really open a little bit more into that fear, we're going to find that it always has a gift for us. So, in my example of noticing that when I'm going to speak on social media, sometimes I censor myself and there's a fear of maybe I shouldn't be saying that. I have a choice. I'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, this is too much. Let's not talk about it, brush it away. Or I can lean in a little bit further and I could be like, interesting, there's a fear here. So, what is this fear really telling me? Oh, it's telling me that people are not going to like me if I say something that they don't want to hear, right? Okay, what is really the needs that I have underneath that? I really have a need to be loved. Okay, so can I self-source that love now? Oh, I really do love myself. I'm so safe in me. There's nothing that I can do that's not going to be love for myself. In that moment, I used something that was meant to be a resistance and I turned it into a massive gift. I turned it into a blessing, into something that I get to give to myself.
Yeah, I love what you're saying because I just shared with you that I'm in the process of writing a memoir. I'm writing my book. And for me, initially, I had the resistance that you spoke of. I had the fear about being so vulnerable and exposing myself to the world because I share some very personal and vulnerable stories. Like, talk about taking off my mask. I really ripped it off in this book. And I write about this in the book when I explored where that fear originated from. It started when I was 10 and I tried out for the lead role of the play Snow White. I wanted to be Snow White. Prior to that, I was used to singing and dancing in the kitchen and putting on shows for my mom. And my mom was like clapping, "Oh my God, you're so good." And I thought I was great. I could sing. And then when I went to try out for Snow White, my teacher was like, "Nope, you can't sing. You can't
Mhm.
carry a tune. You're not good enough." And then it happened again when I tried out a couple years later for the lead in Grease, the same thing. I kept putting myself out there and getting rejected. And then I started to develop a belief that I wasn't good enough. I wasn't worthy enough. That, coupled with many other examples like that, prevented me from shining my light. Because if you put your hand on a hot stove enough times and get burned, you're going to stop putting your hand on the stove. However, I didn't, like you said, I didn't have the training or the models, the role models to show me and teach me to go inward and say, it's okay. I'm still worthy and lovable just because I'm not playing Snow White. I'm still worthy and lovable just because I'm not playing offense in soccer or whatever those situations were. I just internalized as a young girl that there must be something wrong with me. And so now fear is something that would prevent me and keep me from stepping outside of my comfort zone. It kept me in check. It kept me safe. It kept me safe for many years. But what happens is, and if you can elaborate on this as well, is when we don't step into our greatness and we don't shine our light and be who we're meant to be, there's an ache inside. There's such a void and an ache inside. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. It's exactly that, and it's the recognition that until you take that step and until you just go full on into whatever that thing is for you, there will be an ache inside, and it's more hurtful to live 20 years, 30 years, 40 years with that ache inside than it is to be like, okay, there's a fear now. Let me face it now. Let's go deep into it now, and let me conquer it now. When you were sharing your story, I think one of the big points as well is that as society, we haven't been taught how to go through failure together. We can go through successes together. We do a big graduation party. There you go. Celebrate a success. But when we fail, there aren't a lot of spaces that we can experience those things
No.
as they are happening. So I've recently had an experience of losing a baby. I was pregnant. It was my first
Oh, I'm
pregnancy and I
sorry.
lost my child. Yeah, thank you. And you can go on my Instagram and you can see the post if you want to. I decided very openly to go through that journey with people, to let people witness as it was happening. Because when we do that, when we can sit with our hard emotions and really let them be what it is, the mind will not form the beliefs
Mm.
that otherwise it will. Because otherwise, the mind will form the belief you're not enough, you failed. That's all the mind trying to make sense of a body experience. We can't make sense of a body experience. We have to experience through the body. So failure needs to be experienced through the body. The fear needs to be experienced through the body. And hopefully in safe spaces where we can hold that so it doesn't become a problem from the mind. And we see people who they don't move, they don't go for it because they are afraid. Why? Because they're too much in their minds. They haven't dropped into their body. They haven't sat and be like, let me see the thing that's really going on here, that's really bothering me here.
So can you take us through a little bit of your process, like a few steps of how you would like maybe first recognize and then go from like the mind to the body
Yeah.
to be able to experience how to move. Let's talk about the how to now. We know there's a
Yeah.
problem when fear keeps us from moving forward. We know that if we face fear and go through it, that's the antidote to being able to step into our greatness. So, how do we get from point A to point B?
Yeah, you can do this with any emotion, but let's use disappointment because disappointment for people pleasers and perfectionists, I
Mm,
think, is a very normal emotion that comes up. So,
mhm.
the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to be committed. I'm going to catch disappointment the next time it comes. So, you're going to use your mental faculties to say, I'm on the lookout for it. Once it happens, it's not going to be automatic. I'm going to get it. And then once you get it, you did something to somebody, they made a reaction that you saw they were disappointed on you, or you did something that you were disappointed in yourself. You're like, aha, here it is. Here's the disappointment. Only having that attitude is already going to change things because I don't want to feel disappointment. No, I'm looking out for it. Come to me, disappointments. I want you. I want to have a meeting with you. Once you find that moment, oh, here it is. Here is that disappointment that's so familiar, always on the background, but I never sit with it. Okay, let me take a real moment of intimacy with myself here. You can do this in the lineup at the grocery store. You can do this while you're driving on your car. It doesn't matter. And welcome it in. Come on in, disappointment. Let me see you. Okay, what's the sensation that you give in my body? How do you resonate with me? Are you cold? Are you hot? Are you like very fluttery? Are you more still and dense? What are you? Okay, now I'm getting there. Now I'm getting to know you. Now we're working together. And we sit with that for a while. We don't want it to go away. We simply sit with it. And just by doing that, we'll see what's going to change. And once we get into a point where we're sitting with it for 15 seconds, 20 seconds, but we're really not resisting, you're going to notice your body's going to be like, okay, that's done. I want to get out of it. No, you stay. There's nothing for me to fear. I don't need to fear the bad feelings. So let me stay. And once you get into that space where you're not resisting, you're staying with it, now you get to implant a question. What is the true need that is underneath this? Oh, I have a need of being loved. Okay, then can I give myself that love right now? Can I infuse myself with the sensation of love? Self love was the antidote to disappointment in that moment. You just alchemized disappointment into self love. Or I have a true need to be brave. Okay, then how bravery feels like for me? Can I activate bravery? How do I feel when I'm brave? You just turn disappointment into courage. So that's when you become the alchemist of the emotions is you do that. And then you act on that courage. Then you decide next time I'm going to feel disappointment. Now that I know that my need is to be brave, the true need underneath the disappointment is to be brave. Next time I find a disappointment, I'm going to act on courage. I'm going to do the brave thing. You decide. Next time it comes, I have a plan now for how I'm going to shift it.
I love what you're sharing because I want to say two things. One is what you're speaking to. I've been doing that inner healing work for a long time, and it has transformed my life. It has allowed me to put that book out there when I was afraid to put the book out there. It's allowed me to start this podcast 4 years ago. It has allowed me to transform my relationships with other people because I speak up, I speak out. A whole bunch of things have shifted in my life. So I want to say that. And then I want to say how quickly the pattern can still rear its head and still come up. So it just came up for me a couple of days ago. And then what I want to add on is how quickly I'm realizing this right now in this moment in hindsight, how quickly I went to dismissing the disappointment, the fear, pushing it aside. More so even now because it's Kim, you should know better. This don't allow this to feeling to pull you back. And I dismissed and discounted my emotion and my feeling the same way my mom did or the adults in my life did when I was a kid growing up. So the feeling was fear of disappointing my ghostwriter because I had a ghostwriter and then I had an editor and my editor and I did a lot of changes on the original manuscript. What he did was phenomenal. He wrote the foundation of it. It could not have been what it is without him. And I continually tell him that, but it also changed a lot. So when I sent him the newest version, I haven't heard back from him. And my mind is going down a rabbit hole. Oh my God, I've upset him. Oh my God, I did the disappointment, the fear of disappointing him because I've changed so much of the original manuscript. And what you just beautifully reminded me of is no, don't push that fear, that feeling aside. Be with it and just allow that is how I'm going to alchemize that feeling. And you want to know what? Because I haven't been with it and I keep pushing it aside, it keeps nagging at me. It
Yes,
keeps
eu vou
gnawing. So
tudo.
that which we resist persists is so true. I am resisting that feeling and it just keeps knocking on the door. And what I also was reminded of when you were saying just allow it to be in or to come in is the story of the Buddha with
Mm,
Mara. When the Buddha invites Mara is any negative emotion, any shadow part of us and says, and the Buddha said, the story says that the Buddha says, Mara, come have tea with me.
yeah,
The Buddha puts out a seat, a cushion for Mara and then offers a cup of tea. And then Buddha sits down on the cushion and invites Mara. Mara can be fear, disappointment, sadness, shame, whatever it is, come sit with me. And that's what you're saying. That's what you were
yeah.
just describing. And it's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. And I truly believe that is the secret to a rich life, to a rich, fulfilled life. It's not that when we have a fulfilled, like I live my version of heaven on earth right now, like I've created a reality for me that's also everything that I dreamed of and more. And it's not that I just have the great days and the sunshine. I think what makes us a rich life is the ability you go through life no matter what it brings you and you flow through it. You don't resist it. That's what gives richness. That's what gives layers and to enjoy the human experience. And once you understand that the real life that I want is not a life where everything is good, is a life where everything is present, where everything is rich.
Yeah. The good, the bad, and the ugly. So even if you're like right now, I said, I'm recovering from COVID. Again, rather than resisting it, it is what it is in this moment. I still have COVID, but at the same time, like I can be present with that instead of being in fear or being in my head or, oh my God, reason why, blah, blah, blah. No, it is what it is right now. I'm recovering. I'm still here with you today. We're having this conversation today. And I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful that I'm getting better. So, like you said, it's just about being in the moment. If we're stuck in the past and we let our past impact our present reality, that's going to create havoc for us. And if we're constantly in the future or fear of the future, that's going to create pain and suffering as well. So when you talk about that richness, of life, what you're talking about is being able to be in the moment with whatever the moment is, not what we want the moment to be, but what the moment is.
Yes, yes. And if you don't make meaning about what's in the moment, if you don't give it a meaning to what's happening, you're going to find that everything that's happening to you is giving you a blessing. Everything that happens to you is going to become a great story in the end of the day. And you're going to have a rich life. You're going to come to the end of it and you're going to be like, I didn't betray myself. I didn't betray my feelings. And I used fear as my ally. That's a good life.
So, would you say that is for you the single most enriching, pivotal way of stepping into your greatness, our greatness? Is that the steps, the pathway, the way to overcome fear of playing
Mhm.
small? Because that's how we started the conversation, with how
Mhm.
fear keeps us playing small, and fear can keep us from living our greatest lives. And
Mhm.
so I guess what I'm really asking, is there anything else that you would add in this conversation that would help the listeners to say like, "Oh, I want to live my greatest life too. I'm done playing small. I'm
Mhm.
done playing it safe. I want to manifest. I want to live with abundance." Is there anything, we already said so much, but is there anything else that you would want to leave the listener with?
Okay. I think to say there's a single thing, it would be like diminishing because I don't believe there's a single thing or single secret, but there's codes that we need to receive at different stages in our journey. And one of the things to look at, if fear is like really the thing, together with everything that we just said, together with the body exercise and everything, it's very important to make a commitment to love ourselves.
Mm.
That was for me, that was my biggest transformational moments. That's another story. When I was deep in the depression, I had immigrated to Canada, I was 23 years old. I didn't have family, didn't know anybody. I fell into a deep depression. And one night on the dark tent during my worst panic attack of my life, a voice came to me and said, "You don't know how to love yourself." And I was like, that's right, I don't. I don't know how to love myself. So if I need to start somewhere, is I need to start loving myself. And I need to decide that loving myself matters. Loving myself is an important thing to do for me, for my family, for the world, for humanity. Because we're not going to go through the fear if we don't love ourselves. Why would we? There's no motivation, really. And loving yourself is, of course, there's exercises and practice, but in the end of the day, is a commitment more than anything. You commit to it. I will love myself when it's hard. I will love myself when it's easy. I will wake up tomorrow and I will remember that loving myself is quite literally the most important thing that I need to do in the world. Because don't we want to bring more love into the world? Love starts with self love. There's no other way. Sorry to break it to you.
Yeah, I agree. I love that. I 100%, 1,000% wholeheartedly agree, because it really wasn't until I was able to embody self love and loving myself that I was able to move away from or heal from the perfectionistic and people pleasing pattern. When you're in people pleasing and perfectionism, your focus is solely on the outside.
Mhm.
You're looking for external validation. And when you're looking out there and not turning inward in here for it, you're not loving yourself.
Yeah,
So
it's
that's a great
exactly
place to
that. Yeah. Put that energy in again. Bring that energy in. It's me, and I'm going to love from the inside out. That's exactly that. Mhm.
I love that. I love this conversation. It was so powerful and so poignant. Thank you so much. I feel like we just went straight in with a laser. Like we went right to the
Yes.
core of it. We lasered that. It was amazing. So where can the listeners find you, Carolini?
Please come and be my friend on Facebook, Carolini Arco. On Instagram is Arco Teachings. So that's ARCO Teachings. And you can find arcoteachings.com on the interwebs. Come and say hi. I'm always very open to meeting you. And I'm so appreciate being here again, Kim.
Oh my goodness. I love the conversation. There you have it. such an amazing conversation with Carolini Arco, a spiritual mentor, Reiki master, breathwork coach, life coach, with so much wisdom and insight, intuition, experience on how to alchemize, how to transform fear so that you can finally step outside your comfort zone. Stop playing small. Stop playing safe. Dr. Phil used to say all the time, this is not a dress rehearsal. We only have this one life. And the last thing that I would want for you is to be at the end of your life and regret that you didn't live your life fully, that you didn't go for your dreams, that you didn't live your life according to your own expectations. If you're just tired or you're stuck and you want to move forward, you want to have a better relationship with fear and overcome fear or use fear, befriend fear to help you to step outside your comfort zone, and you just can't seem to do it on your own. I encourage you or I invite you to go to my website, kimgrosscoaching.com, and book a call with me. I would love to guide you on your journey of helping you to finally or really just be able to go for your dreams, live the life that you want to live life with meaning and purpose, joy and peace and abundance. Until next time.